a place so restricted that the world's most powerful nations agreed to leave it untouched. A continent larger than Europe, yet almost no human has ever stepped into its interior. A land where satellites reveal shapes too perfect to be natural, and a treaty forbids anyone from getting close enough to confirm. For more than 60 years, Antarctica has existed behind an invisible wall. Controlled access, regulated travel, no independent exploration. The only place on Earth where militaries, governments, and rival superpowers suddenly chose silence over competition. And that silence is where the mystery begins. Because buried beneath its ice thicker than the Himalayas are tall, lie things that don't fit into any textbook. Geometric formations that look like pyramids, caves that appear carved, ancient fossils from lush forests that shouldn't exist, and subglacial lakes sealed off for millions of years, holding life that science still can't explain. Every year, satellites capture new anomalies. Every year, old maps resurface showing Antarctica drawn without ice. And every year, the world asks the same question: what exactly is hidden under the ice, and why is no one allowed to find out? Tonight, we pull back the curtain on the world's last forbidden continent, piece by piece, secret by secret, until the mystery becomes impossible to ignore. Secret 1. The pyramids in the ice. Our story begins high above the Ellsworth Mountains. In 2016, satellite images picked up something that shouldn't exist in the middle of a frozen desert. A mountain with 4 sharp faces and a pointed top, sitting like a snow-covered pyramid not far from the Patriot Hills. Geologists say it's a nunatak, a rocky peak poking through the ice, carved over millions of years by brutal winds and freeze-thaw cycles. But from above, the symmetry is hard to ignore. Most eroded peaks have 1 or 2 flat faces. This one seems to have 4, like a perfectly weathered monument. Compare that to the pyramids of Giza, aligned with the cardinal directions, step pyramids in Mexico and Peru, even the controversial pyramids in Bosnia, where people claim natural hills hide ancient structures. Is the Antarctic formation just another trick of erosion, or the last visible tip of something buried under a mile of ice? Access is the problem. Antarctica is brutally remote, covered by an ice sheet thicker than some mountain ranges. Getting a research team, heavy equipment, and proper excavation gear to that exact spot is insanely difficult and wrapped in layers of regulation. So for now, the pyramid sits there, half buried, half explained, a natural mountain, or the last exposed stone of a civilization no one remembers. Secret 2. Doorways and stairways to nowhere. The pyramids aren't the only geometric shapes raising eyebrows. On the far side of East Antarctica, satellite images revealed a large rectangular opening in a rock face, clean edges, deep shadow, and a shape that looks disturbingly like a hangar door. Some people measured it directly from the imagery and claimed it's big enough to fit a full-sized aircraft. Glaciologists reply with another natural explanation: ice flow, melting, refreezing, and wind erosion carving neat-looking gaps into snow and rock. From the right angle, a deep crack can look like a doorway. But then you move to a southern island near the Antarctic coast. There, another image shows a wide cave entrance at the base of a mountain, and just below it, a series of dark, parallel lines stepping up the slope. They look uncannily like stairs. Again, the official line is layers of rock, uneven melting, or collapsed snow shelves. But the steps are evenly spaced, clean, and too regular for a lot of people to ignore. To make things weirder, some of these features appear and disappear over the years. One season the doorway is clear. A few years later, it's buried. Then, after storms and shifting snow, it reappears, sometimes slightly different. Are these just illusions? Our brains imposing patterns on random ice? Or glimpses of something under the surface, temporarily exposed and then quickly covered again by nature or by design. Secret 3. Antarctica before the ice. Here's where the story takes a hard left from weird shapes to solid science. Antarctica wasn't always a frozen wasteland. Deep in the Beardmore Glacier region, just 500 kilometers from the South Pole, early explorers found fossilized leaves that looked like beech trees. At first, scientists thought it was a mistake. It wasn't. On Alexander Island and the Antarctic Peninsula, researchers later uncovered upright fossil trees, still rooted in the soil where they once grew, some reaching 7 meters tall. Around them, fossil pollen, leaves, and organic debris from what used to be a lush, temperate rainforest about 100 million years ago. Imagine that for a second. Antarctica with forests of evergreen trees and ferns, rivers and wetlands, and temperatures between 13 and 21 degrees Celsius. Months of polar darkness, but still warm enough for forests to thrive. More recently, sediment cores taken offshore revealed that as little as 12 million years ago, parts of Antarctica were covered in tundra, not ice. Glaciation was happening, but slowly. Some regions stayed relatively mild for far longer than anyone expected. The question writes itself. If Antarctica stayed ice-free in some places for millions of years, was there enough time and the right conditions for intelligent life to use it? Mainstream science says no. Modern humans are only about 300,000 years old. The big ice sheets are far older. But every new fossil, every ancient pollen grain dug out of the seabed sharpens the picture. Antarctica used to be alive, green, and much more hospitable than the frozen tomb we see now. If forests and rivers could be preserved in stone, what else might still be asleep under the ice? Secret 4. Ancient maps and the land before ice. Now we bring in one of the most controversial pieces of this puzzle. The Peary Race Map. Drawn in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral, the map shows the west coast of Africa, the east coast of South America, and a mysterious southern landmass that looks suspiciously like Antarctica. Not as a vague blob, but with a coastline some people claim resembles Antarctica without its ice. Historian Charles Hapgood argued that Peary Reis must have used much older source maps, created by a forgotten seafaring culture that charted the globe long before recorded history. In his theory, this civilization saw Antarctica when it was at least partly ice-free. Most academics reject this idea. They say that southern landmass could just be a distorted extension of South America, or a guess based on the myth of Terra Australis, the unknown southern land, imagined by early geographers. And yet, the more we map Antarctica with radar and satellites, the more we uncover buried landscapes, valleys, river systems, and plateaus that match what a pre-ice coastline might have looked like. Recently, scientists identified a hidden landscape the size of Belgium beneath East Antarctica. Hills, ridges, and interconnected valleys that haven't seen the sky in at least 14 million years. No one is claiming that a lost civilization definitely mapped it, but if someone somehow did see Antarctica before the deep freeze, it would mean our timeline of who explored what and when is missing a very big chapter. Secret 5. Axis shifts, Casey, and a moving pole. To explain how Antarctica went from temperate rainforest to deep freeze, most scientists point to natural climate cycles, ice ages and warm periods driven by changes in Earth's orbit, greenhouse gases, and ocean currents. But there's another, more extreme theory: true polar wander. The idea that Earth's entire outer shell can shift over the inner layers, dragging continents into new climate zones. If that happened in the past, Antarctica might once have sat in a much warmer latitude before sliding down to the South Pole. It's a debated idea, But some rock formations and ancient shorelines suggest that chunks of the crust really have moved over geologic time. Then, into this mix, steps Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet. During trance readings in the early 20th century, Cayce predicted dramatic shifts in Earth's axis, rising seas, sinking land masses, and, most provocatively, that Antarctica would become fertile and inhabited again. To Cayce's followers, that isn't a prediction, it's a cycle. They believe Antarctica may have been home to an earlier civilization wiped out when the poles shifted, its ruins now locked under the ice, waiting to re-emerge. Science doesn't back Cayce's visions. But when you combine evidence of past climate swings, the possibility of crustal movement, and a continent that used to be green, you can see why people think the ice might be hiding more than fossils. Secret 6. Alien lakes beneath the ice. Now we drop through the ice. Hidden under kilometers of frozen weight are more than 400 subglacial lakes, sealed off from the surface for millions of years. The most famous is Lake Vostok, a freshwater body the size of a small country, buried nearly 4,000 meters beneath East Antarctica. For up to 25 million years, no sunlight, no air, no direct contact with the outside world. When Russian scientists finally drilled down in 2012, pressurized water shot up the borehole, mixing with drill fluid and ending the mission before a clean sample could be collected. Still, the idea is staggering: an ancient liquid world under the ice, untouched since long before humans existed. Other lakes have been sampled more successfully. Lake Mercer revealed bacterial life thriving in total darkness under immense pressure. Lake Enigma showed strange microbial mats, forming carpet-like and tree-like structures on the lakebed. Complex ecosystems built entirely without sunlight. These organisms live off chemicals, minerals, and the slow exchange of energy from the rock and water around them. Some scientists think there could even be small, simple animals lurking down there. If life can survive in a lightless, frozen, high-pressure Antarctic lake, it makes the idea of life in places like Europa or Enceladus, the icy moons of Jupiter and Saturn, a lot less far-fetched. To a lot of people, these subglacial lakes aren't just extreme ecosystems. They're practice grounds for searching for alien life. And if such worlds exist under our feet, what else might be living or hiding down there? Secret 7. Blood Falls. Antarctica's bleeding glacier. Deep in the McMurdo dry valleys, one glacier looks like it's been stabbed. From the front of the Taylor Glacier, a 5-story-high red waterfall spills onto the ice. Locals call it Blood Falls. For decades, nobody knew what caused it. It looked like the glacier itself was bleeding. The reality is wild enough on its own. Millions of years ago, this valley was part of the ocean. When the water retreated and ice advanced, a pocket of salty seawater was trapped under the glacier. Sealed off from air and sunlight, it became more and more concentrated in salt and iron. Today, pressure forces that brine up through cracks in the ice. When it hits the surface and meets oxygen, the iron oxidizes, turning the water blood red, just like rust. That's the chemistry. But inside that red brine lives a community of extremophile microbes that survive without oxygen or sunlight, feeding on iron and sulfur. They've been isolated for over 1 million years, evolving in total darkness. To some researchers, Blood Falls is a window into how life could survive on frozen worlds. To others, it's proof that Antarctica still hides self-contained ecosystems in places we least expect. For conspiracy theorists, it's something else. A vent, a leak, a sign that something deeper, natural or artificial, is hidden under the ice and occasionally bleeds into our world. Secret 8. Monsters, ghost ships, and the feeling of being watched. Antarctica isn't just science and ice cores. It has mythology, too. One of the most persistent legends is the Ningen, a massive, pale, humanoid creature said to haunt Antarctic waters. Witnesses describe it as up to 30 meters long, with a smooth white body, small eyes, and a wide, expressionless mouth. The first reports appeared on Japanese forums in the early 2000s, supposedly from crew members of research vessels. No clear photo has ever been produced, but the story refuses to die. Then there's the Kraken myth, reborn in the Southern Ocean. In 2016, a satellite image near Deception Island showed a strange shadow in the sea that looked like a massive tentacled creature. Scientists said it was just a rock formation. But in the same waters, we know for a fact that colossal squid grow bigger than anything our ancestors ever imagined. Antarctica's legends aren't limited to the sea. Explorer Ernest Shackleton once wrote about crossing South Georgia Island and feeling the presence of a fourth figure walking with his exhausted team, when there were only 3 men. Later, both of his companions admitted they'd felt the same thing. There's also the ghost ship Jenny, supposedly found trapped in Antarctic ice with her entire crew frozen in place. The captain's last log entry reading, May 4th, 1823. No food for 71 days. I am the only one left alive. Whether that story is true or not, the psychology is real. Months of darkness or endless daylight, howling winds, isolation, and the desolation of places like the McMurdo Dry Valleys play tricks on the human mind. Researchers report footsteps in snow, doors creaking, voices in the wind, tools disappearing and reappearing exactly where they left them. Science blames stress, cold, and sensory deprivation. But when you're alone in a wooden hut, 1,000 kilometers from the nearest city, and you hear something move outside in the endless night, rational explanations don't make it feel any less haunted. Secret 9. Nazis, UFOs, and Operation High Jump. Now we get to one of the darkest and most controversial chapters. In 1938, Nazi Germany launched an Antarctic expedition aboard the MS Schwabenland. Officially, the goal was whale oil and mapping new territory. The team dropped aluminum markers with swastikas across a region they named New Schwabenland, New Swabia. The mission returned with thousands of aerial photos and survey data. Then the war began. Much of the documentation vanished into classified archives or was lost. After Germany's defeat, strange stories started circulating. German submarines surfacing in Argentina months after the war, with no clear explanation for where they'd been. Rumors of a hidden Antarctic base built as a last refuge for Nazi elites. Claims that secret research programs, possibly involving advanced aircraft or even flying discs, had been relocated to the ice. Nothing concrete has ever been found. No tunnels, no hangars, no ruins. But then comes Operation High Jump. In 1946 to 47, just a year after the war, the United States launched the largest Antarctic expedition in history. 4,700 men, 13 ships, dozens of aircraft, led by polar explorer Admiral Richard E. Byrd. Officially, training and mapping. Unofficially, people started asking why you need a small navy to take pictures of ice. High Jump established Little America 4, mapped over 1 million square miles, and then ended early. The sudden termination and reports of lost aircraft, accidents, and unexplained difficulties fed speculation that the U.S. encountered something dangerous. In later decades, a so-called secret diary attributed to Byrd appeared, describing a flight over a warm valley in Antarctica, contact with an advanced subterranean civilization called Agartha, and a warning about nuclear weapons. There is no solid proof the diary is real. Historians consider it a hoax. But Byrd did give a curious interview in 1947, warning that the United States could one day be attacked by aircraft coming over the poles. In the early days of the Cold War, that sounded like a reference to Soviet bombers. To conspiracy theorists, it sounded like something else. Add in Nazi obsession with occult societies like Thule and Vril, post-war programs like Operation Paperclip, which brought German scientists to America, and a sudden worldwide spike in UFO sightings in the late 1940s. Secret 10. The Antarctic Treaty and the Future of the Forbidden Continent. All of this leads to one final, very real mystery. Why did the world's rivals decide to share Antarctica? On December 1st, 1959, 12 nations, including the United States and the Soviet Union, signed the Antarctic Treaty in Washington, D.C. It said, no military bases, no nuclear testing or radioactive waste, no new territorial claims. Scientific data must be shared. In the middle of the Cold War, when these same countries were building nukes and spying on each other, they suddenly came together and agreed to demilitarize the largest unexplored landmass on Earth. Today, over 50 countries are part of the treaty system. Access is tightly controlled. Tourists are restricted to a few coastal areas. Huge regions inland are effectively off-limits to everyone except a handful of scientists with special permission. To many people, that looks like responsible environmental protection. To others, it looks like a velvet curtain. Because while conspiracy theories talk about aliens and hidden bases, scientists are finding something arguably even more shocking. Ancient air bubbles trapped in ice, preserving over 1 million years of climate history. Invasive species sneaking in on ships and equipment, threatening fragile ecosystems. Ice shelves collapsing, glaciers retreating, and the West Antarctic ice sheet showing signs of long-term instability. A very real possibility that parts of Antarctica could slowly turn green again over the next few centuries as the planet warms. In some coastal areas, hardy plants are already appearing. Penguin colonies are moving south. Models suggest that one day, small pockets of Antarctica might even support limited agriculture. Barley, potatoes, grazing animals, while the rest of the continent continues to reshape global sea levels. Antarctica is both time machine and warning sign. It shows us Earth as it once was, green, forested, and full of life. It shows us what unchecked climate change can do. Lock a continent in ice for millions of years. And now, it shows us how quickly that ice can start to melt. The last great unknown. So what is Antarctica really hiding? Perfectly shaped pyramids and suspicious doorways carved into the ice. Fossil rainforests and buried river systems from a time when the continent was warm and alive. Subglacial lakes full of alien-like microbes. Blood-red waterfalls, ghost stories, and creatures that shouldn't exist. Secret expeditions, military operations, and rumors of contact with something or someone far beyond us. A treaty that turned the harshest place on Earth into the most tightly controlled region on the planet. And beneath it all, a vast archive of climate data that may decide our future. Maybe there are no crashed UFOs. Maybe there is no lost civilization under the ice. But one thing is certain. Antarctica is not just empty white space on the map. It is a living record of Earth's past, a key to our future, and the last place where the world's most powerful nations agreed to keep secrets together. Until the ice fully reveals what it's been hiding, Antarctica will remain exactly what it is today, a land of silence, science, and suspicion. If this journey raised new questions for you, drop them in the comments. And if you think more people should know what's really going on at the bottom of the world, like the video, share it, and subscribe for more deep dives into the history they don't teach in school.